Well, that was an unnecessary stressful end of the game, but in the end we've got the 3 points and that's the most important part. Now we only have to wait a week until Manchester City wins the FA Cup. Manchester City plays against Manchester United. Of course, if United wins the FA Cup final, then they go to the Europa League and we still go to the Conference League. Hopefully they lose it and then we can go to the Europa League, which in my opinion is a better quality league than the Conference League. Of course, it sucks to play Thursday night, but at least it will give the youngsters, I guess, a bit more experience to play already in Europe in preparation of the Champions League, which hopefully we will qualify for at the end of next season. Now, in this game, yet again, there were various parts of the game where we were not dominating at all. We were actually struggling. We've seen that in the last game as well. We won. Okay, fine. You can win games, as we've seen. You can win games by dominating the game fully from start to end. But sometimes you win games by suffering. As Conte likes to say, we suffer, we will have to suffer. In this case today, we suffered, but we won. You will see in the stats, we didn't play that well. Positioning-wise, we were also very, very defensive. More on that in just a second. Plus, VAR. VAR today shown yet again how worthless it is. Why do we have VAR if it doesn't even give us 2 clear penalties today? Forget about the fact that Anthony Taylor is probably one of the worst refs in the Premier League. You've got VAR, you've got the screens, you've got the replays, and you're going to tell me that those penalties were not worthy of a check? My opinion, that's a complete joke. Second of all, Thiago Silva. Let's just appreciate the fact that he signed for 1 year, stayed for 4 years. What an absolute legend. He's definitely going to be missed, not just because he's one of the best defenders out there, but because of his leadership and especially because of the way he carries himself. He's not the fancy schmancy Brazilian with bling bling everywhere, makes noise on social media, although his wife is a bit more vocal than him, but he's the perfect example of how a professional should be leading the way at such a club. He will be missed. Hopefully we will see him back at the bridge pretty soon. Then moving on to Conor Gallagher. Hopefully this was not Conor Gallagher's and Trevor Chalobah's last game. Conor Gallagher, minute 94. Do you remember what happened? Minute 94, this guy runs all the way back, tracks, makes a goal-saving tackle. You can buy fancy schmancy players, you can buy skillful players, but you cannot buy a player that plays with his heart, a player that is born a Chelsea player, a player like Conor Gallagher. It's going to be a huge mistake if we sell him, especially if we again sell our players to one of our direct rivals. And so before jumping into the stats, it's a strong end of the season. 1 loss in 15 games, I believe, 5 straight wins, top 4 performance in 2024. I mean, you cannot deny that this has been a bad season overall, but we ended it in a right way despite all the injuries. Now, some people will say, yeah, so how are you winning so much at the end of the season despite having injuries? Well, I'll explain in very short why. Why? It's because you had time to play with the same uninjured players week in, week out. So you've got those automations, you've got those recognitions. Oh, we know he's going to run from the outside, maybe from the inside. I know if I run to the right, he's going to pass it like this, he's going to pass it like that. At the start of the season, especially with all these youngsters, especially with the new manager, with the new players, with all the injuries, it's quite difficult to have a way of playing. You have to build it up. It takes some time. Hopefully, throughout the summer, they work on it a bit more, and next season we have way less injuries. One can hope, plus we're going to sell a bunch of players and bring, I think, a handful of players as well, hopefully experienced ones and not just kids. Now, let's dive a bit deeper. So, at the end of the first half, Bournemouth had already more shots than us, 10 compared to 8, but we had more passes, more touches. Now, we are the color orange here, as always. I don't know why they put Chelsea not always by default in blue, but okay. You can clearly see that we spent way too much time in the first half in our own half, despite leading, right? Amazing goal by Caicedo, amazing goal. But it's a shame because if you look at the heat map again, we spent way too much time in our own half. Bournemouth, more attacking. Of course, there is a lot of space here in the middle of the park, which, in my opinion, we should have taken advantage of that. Now, moving on to full time, as you can see, it's pretty clear that we were attacking a bit more in the second half of the game, right? Bournemouth as well. Clearly, both teams were going for it. But again, more time has to be spent in the opponent's half. Less time in our half, especially when you play teams like Bournemouth. No disrespect to Bournemouth, mid-table team for this season, or bottom half table for this season, I believe. Still, they have the quality. They could have scored. They could have equalized. I mean, if you look at the statistics for the full time, you can see they had 22 shots. We only had 17. But of course, we had more possession, we had more passes, we had more touches. That's all fine. But again, it makes zero sense to have more passes, more touches if it's all in our own half. It just doesn't help. Moving forward for next season, of course, we hope that players like Nkunku, players like Palmer, Madueke, Reece James, etc., 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 Nicholas Jackson are all going to stay fit. They can play week in, week out with each other. And so you've got those recognitions of runs, of plays, etc. And hopefully we will spend more time attacking the opponent rather than defending, especially against those outside top 6 teams. Now this season we already scored twice as many goals as we did last season. We have way more points than we did last season, so there is already some improvement. We've talked about that, so that's great. Now imagine what happens next season when there is some consistency. We only need what? Another 15? We're probably going to get another 15, 20 points if there is more consistency next season, which means you're already in the Champions League positions. So, I mean, we are on track to become, again, a top 4 team. We've been a top 4 team throughout 2024 so far. Of course, a season is not played in half a year. A season is played from August until the end of May. Again, everything is about consistency. Everything is about making sure you had the right players that are fit, that are experienced, that know how you want to play, that know how their teammates want to play. That's also very important. Lots of new players. Sometimes you have to guess. Yeah, you have to guess. Is Mudryk going to go in the inside or the outside? Yes, you can try those things in training. But in the end, it's all about playing 90 minutes with your teammates week in, week out, and you create those synergies. So overall, congrats to Manchester City for winning a record 4 Premier League titles in a row. Quite remarkable. Hopefully we can do better in a couple of years' time. Pretty happy that Arsenal, yet again, even with 89 points, they didn't win the league. That's quite something. Fortunately, Spurs did win today, so there is that. Strong end of the season. We should be doing much, much better next season. Hopefully, Pochettino stays here for another season or maybe more. It's out of my hands, but we're definitely going to hear more rumors about that in the coming days and weeks. That's about it for me. Expect more videos in the coming days about the new signing from Brazil, about ins and outs, transfers. Those will all come out in the coming days. If you enjoy this type of videos, leave it a thumbs up, subscribe if you have not, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.